What up, YouTube? This is EvanForGrips.com coming at you with another live session. My latest request has been for some 5 cent, 10 cent, 6 max action, so here it is. Today, the theme that we're going to be discussing is that of professionalism and what separates an amateur player from a professional poker player, per se. Now, by definition, a professional is a person who is paid to undertake a specialized set of tasks and complete them for a fee. With poker, this is a little different. This definition doesn't really work for a professional poker player per se. When we think professionals, things like doctors, accountants, lawyers, engineers, and educators, scientists, those all come to mind. And in the case of athletes, the difference between a professional and an amateur is that a professional is paid, whereas an amateur is someone who is doing it for the love of the game, per se. Like an Olympic athlete is typically considered an amateur. But anyway, when it comes to poker, professionalism, to me, is how you treat the game and how you treat your job. It's very easy to be, just a gambler, an addicted gambler, or in the worst cases, a degenerate gambler, which would involve engaging in a lot of behavior and activity that is not conducive to success at the tables and a good long-term, long-run lifestyle. So to me, being a professional poker player is all about how you treat the game. So the first thing is, if you are aspiring to be a professional poker player, which it's a good gig, but it takes a lot of hard work, just like any other sport or any other profession. Don't get me wrong on that one. You have to be willing to put in a lot of time to get really good at the game to begin with. So to be an expert at something takes about 10,000 hours of hands-on practice. That means getting limp re-raised doesn't help. I'm just going to call the 3-bet with this king-queen suited, but now I'll fold. So that means 10,000 hours of play, be it online tournaments, online cash games, live tournaments, live cash games. You have to have this hands-on experience in the field, because you can only learn so much by reading or by discussing with friends, reviewing things, working on problems, whatever. There are lots of methods to learning, but to really get that experience and to become comfortable and to become an expert, you have to have that first-hand experience and practice. That's the only way to get comfortable. It's the only way to get used to the situations, learning to deal with the pressures that you'll face, just dealing with things firsthand. And wow, people are going crazy and they are getting rewarded for it. Say 10,000 hours, that's the first thing. I don't think that if you're aspiring to be a professional that you have to put in 10,000 hours, ASAP. There are only so many hours in a day, and if you spend too much of them trying to get in hours, and don't give yourself rest or time to do other things or to clear your mind, to squeeze out the sponge, as we call it, because your mind is like a sponge that can absorb so much information in a certain time period. And you have to rinse that sponge out so it can absorb more information after. So don't think that you need to get your 10,000 hours in right here, right now. Putting in 10 hours today, 10 hours the next day. That's not the way to do it. It's just to accept that to acquire 10,000 hours, it's going to be spread out most likely over a couple of years. But the more quality you make those hours, the lower the actual numerical requirement can be. Maybe you can become an expert in like 5,000 hours. Given how many tables you can play at a time online, I think that definitely speeds up the learning curve, because you can play, 2-3 times as many hands per table as you could live, and then you can multi-table. So you can lower the requirements based on that. But moving on, what other things make someone a professional? This is close. Could get paid by an 8, or a couple of weaker 10s, or a couple of stronger 10s. Yeah, I knew it was a very thin bet, and it was close as to whether or not it was a value. But I think overall I can get called by more hands that I have beat than hands that would have had me beat. And I think he would have played a couple of super strong hands differently. So I wasn't extremely concerned about a flush or anything. And most 2 pairs were pretty unlikely. So the other things that you need to do are, of course, take the game seriously. If you want to be a professional, you have to think of it as more than just a game like everyone else who plays it for fun. And you're going to make your money off the people who think that it's just a game, who play it recreationally, like our buddy All In 1107. That means taking the time to read books, taking the time to watch videos, which, if you've made it that far enough into this one, you're already well on your way. It means taking the time to discuss with friends, and most importantly, taking the time to review your own play after the session's done, because that's where you're going to find your mistakes and see where you need to make changes to limit the places that you are losing money and focus on the good habits that you have and repeating them as much as possible. Now that last one is somewhat difficult for a lot of people to do, because it's really fun to play the game, but then taking time to sift through hands and spending hours and hours overlooking minor decisions is not that exciting to a lot of people. And that's where this whole thing about being a professional comes into play. Because if you're really serious about being the best poker player you can be, and you're really serious about improving, then you should be willing to take the time to look through your hand histories and find the mistakes that you're making so that you can stop making them in the future. It may seem like a big time commitment at first for not a huge payback or anything. But it's one of those examples of delayed gratification where, yeah, you won't make extra money while you're spending the time reviewing your hands, but over time it's going to see you making more and losing less, which will be quite rewarding and will make you feel very good about yourself and your game, which will in turn lead to more confidence, which will lead to better play, and will lead to a lot of good things. But it all starts by taking that time to review, think back, think about the game when you're not at the tables. Just constantly be thinking about it, having it in your mind, even when there's not cards in play and money in play that would make things more exciting. And when you're doing this sort of review thing, a huge thing that separates an amateur from a professional, or a professional from an amateur, is that a professional is willing to accept criticism and be honest with himself, or of course herself, about where they might be going wrong. And a professional is also, or someone who wants to act like a professional, is willing to ask other people for their opinion, for their help, And listen to those things with an open mind rather than shutting them out and being like, no, you know what, I like the way I do it. The way I do it's right. So that's just how I'm going to do it. The closed-minded player will remain ignorant forever and will remain an amateur forever, even if they want to call themselves a pro or a semi-pro. Someone who is not open-minded and willing to work on themselves as well as their game has no shot at being a professional and making it in the long run in this game. Those players may hit a small score and have a good amount of money for a period of time, but odds are they're going to run through it and find themselves in not such a comfortable position down the road. Now, I think there's only one more thing when it comes to your self-teaching in poker for being a professional, and that is being willing to then spend money on improving your game. Making that commitment to actually invest money is a big threshold for people to cross, because when everything's free, it's easy to look around and sample things and kind of half-ass it because you have nothing invested in the time you spend learning except for the actual time that you spend watching the videos. But it's not that serious, and if you stopped watching, it wouldn't be a big deal because you didn't commit anything. As soon as you spend even like $1 or $2 on a coaching video or on the training site, or like I said earlier, a book, now you have a vested financial interest in your results, and you're almost guaranteed to take it more seriously because you've invested something that you care about. At least I hope you care about it, which is your money. And at that point, while there's pressure, you'd say, I don't want to have wasted my money on this poker book that I got, so I definitely am going to read through it, and I damn well am going to remember everything in that book and every little piece of information and get the maximum value for my dollar. Now that's not a mandatory thing, but it's a good mental trick that just increases your drive and your want, because now you've committed something and you want to see a return on that. So some people, they say they want to learn, but as soon as it comes to having to commit $5 to something, they say, nah, I don't want to learn it that bad. And to me, that's a pretty clear line for who's serious about trying to get good and who is actually, just thinks it would be fun to be good, but doesn't actually want to commit the time and effort. Now, committing a lot of time, to me, is pretty much the same as committing some money. Like if you're willing to spend 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week on the training side of things, not just the playing side of things, you're definitely on the right path, and you can find yourself in the professional leagues as time goes by. And then, on that topic of spending money on your training and on yourself, investing in a coach, once you feel that you have learned everything you can learn on your own, is a great way to go. And I think once you've invested in a coach, you can probably call yourself a professional, because at that point you've learned a lot, and now you're taking in other people's opinions to try to better yourself. And there are things that you will not be able to find yourself that only someone else can spot for you in your game, and that's where a coach is very helpful. As long as you're, again, willing to have that open mind, you can get really good feedback and insight from an outside source, and they will notice things that you never saw in yourself. And it's also cool to have someone to bounce ideas off and get a different point of view, because sometimes, taking a certain option can be good, but maybe there's a better option. And unless you're working with someone who's going to think outside the box and suggest things that you would have never thought of, there's no way to see all those other options come to fruition. So it's a really good way to get your creative juices flowing. And again, it's one of those commitments where once you've done it, you've set up that first meeting, you're going to do what you can to get the most out of it, because coaching isn't free and you don't want to waste your money. I'm not going to cold call with the fours, because it's possible we get re-raised stolen by Lucky Burns and then our 90 cents got burned. Other aspects of professionalism that go outside of the education side of things. Definitely bankroll management and how you treat your money is a very big element of what separates a professional from an amateur. Amateur players, and even a lot of players who might consider themselves semi-pro, are extremely aggressive with bankrolls, constantly depositing some modest amount and trying to run it up as quickly as possible, playing as big of games as their bankroll will allow them, and will often end up with a large bankroll again for a period of time, but then that money will magically disappear when the hot streak runs out and the player stops winning every all-in. And this aggressive bankroll management, while fun and the quickest way to build up a big bankroll, is not sustainable, and therefore is not a very professional thing to do. So if you want to consider yourself, you want to work towards being a professional poker player, you have to understand good bankroll management. You have to play within your bankroll, and if it's your only source of income, you also have to live within your bankroll and not overstretch yourself or overspend and put yourselves in vulnerable positions that could change your living circumstances drastically. You definitely don't want any pot that you play to be the difference between whether you're having filet mignon or craft dinner tonight. You shouldn't have that much of yourself in play, and then it's going to have such a drastic impact on your life. Now, if you're very responsible with your bankroll, you never play out of your limits, you'll find yourself making lots of cash outs while maintaining a good amount of money online, or for live players, you know, a good amount of money to have in play while keeping a good amount safe in the box or in the bank or whatever. And you're going to be comfortable and able to play your best game because you know you're not going to feel totally different win or lose, and that life's going to go on and everything's going to be rather similar regardless of how one particular session goes. So that's a very big thing, bankroll management, that even people who have been in the game for a long time, like a few years, especially the younger guys, just don't have a grasp of. And that's why they will have moments of greatness, but it will usually be dependent on other people. And to be a professional, you should be dependent on yourself, and not needing other people's help all the time. Financially, at least. In other words, it's great to get the help of other people and work with other people, but you want to be financially independent if you're going to be, you know, a pro. See if we can get lucky when ace 9. Well, I'm not folding the top pair, but I hope he doesn't bet too big on the end. King, queen. That pot size bet is disappointing. It's usually a strong hand, but I don't know that he'd bet that big with 6-9, so it's really Jack 9 I'm worried about. I guess 10 Jack as well. But, he did beat just about all the 2 pairs. And his min raise on the flop said he already had a good hand, so be straight or could be something random. And that's a thing I've talked about in other videos as well, that pot size bet for players who do mix up their bet sizing, tends to be a very strong hand. There are some players who will only bet the pot in every circumstance. Pre-flop they're potting, on the flop they're potting, turn they're always clicking the pot button. But when someone's mixing up their sizing, sometimes they're in 3/4 pot, sometimes half pot, sometimes min, like this guy, and then they come out and full pot it, you're usually going to see a good hand there, like a very strong hand. And I don't think that he would have valued that 2-pair, at least not that big. So he was very polarized there to a nuts or air sort of thing. Well, I just went for the random dog factor. Sometimes that factor betrays me. Anyway, let's get on to the last element of professionalism, how to separate yourself as a pro poker player, if that's what you like to be, from an amateur, and that is really just how you let your play on the table and your attitude on the table carry over into your regular life, and how you let your go through your regular life with the goals of improving your odds at the table. And that just means kind of taking everything extremely seriously. The same way that when you think of a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant and how hard they work and how organized they are, and that they work very specific hours and very long hours, but they're very organized, very serious, and very passionate about what they do. And poker at the professional level is no different. Every decision you make off the table that can have an impact on your play at the table should be one that works in a positive direction. So you should be, getting in your exercise so that you have more energy at the table. You should be eating good food so your brain can stay focused longer, and so you don't experience sugar crashes and other things that are negatively going to affect your play. You should be making sure that you're always getting a good night's sleep and being well rested so that you can, again, bring a better quality mind to the poker tables. Because as most of you probably have heard at some point in your life, being sleep deprived for like 24 hours when it comes to driving is the equivalent of having had a few drinks. So you can only imagine how that would come to play at the poker table, that if you're trying to play on not a full night's sleep, you're going to be making some poor decisions, the same as you would if you were having a couple drinks while you play. Likewise, a professional doesn't, drink on the job or engage in other activities on the job that would negatively impact their performance. So as a professional poker player, you shouldn't do that either. So again, it really just comes down to taking it more serious than the other guys. Nice try, buddy. And just treating it like a real job. That's really it. If you want to be a professional poker player, you have to treat poker like it's a job, and not so much that it's just a good time. That doesn't mean you can't have fun while you're playing. It just means the ways you have fun might be a little different than the other people. But in the long run, those ways of having fun are more satisfying because you don't have the same feelings of regret that you would from, say, if you're drinking while you're playing, it's fun at the time, but you're going to make some pretty bonehead decisions, and the next day you're going to be like, man, what was I thinking? I can't believe I tried to make that play, like that would never work. You won't have to experience that sort of regret and that bad feeling. That comes with putting yourself in bad positions. That's it. And you'll feel better about yourself than you would were you doing things the other way. Now, for anyone who aspires to be a professional poker player, I think that's great, but I think you have to recognize that being a professional poker player is the same as being a professional in any other field, is the same as being a professional athlete, in that it looks glamorous, and there are definitely some really big highs to it, but it takes a lot of hard work, and it is by no means an easy path, or like an easy way out, as compared to, well, just the image that some people might have that, well, you get to play a game for a living, so that must be awesome and that must be easy. It's still a lot of hard work, and there are still a lot of difficult things that you will have to deal with, the same as in any other form of employment or career. But that does not mean I'm trying to dissuade anyone from going for it. The earlier you put in your hours, and the earlier you start taking it serious and doing everything you can, this is going to be a tough call here. I mean, the 9 now beats me, but the guy had ace-3 last time. He's probably just going to bet everything after I check, so I think against this player I just have to call because I'm getting 3-1, and I'm going to be good at least 25% of the time. Queen deuce. God. This time was his time. But yeah, the earlier you start putting in the hours, the earlier you can make a decision as to whether or not it's a good choice for you. So, you know, don't just play, be like, all right, I'm going to get in my like 5,000 hours of playing, and then I'll work on my video training and my hand history review. Do a good balance right away and see if you feel like this is something you like to do. Do you like to review your hands after your sessions and think about all the other options and various things you could have done differently? Or do you just enjoy playing the game and that's it? If you do, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's totally fine. Just don't then aspire to be a professional player. Be like, okay, I like to play poker, so I'll play poker on the side for fun. And in terms of work, I will stick with whatever I was already doing. Whereas if you really love looking at hand histories, and you love talking to your friends about spots, and you love browsing forums, and it's just everything poker gets you excited, and you're always thinking about poker all the time when you're walking on your way to school, or you know, just when you're out for dinner, it's all you can think about. If that's the feeling you get, then trying to be a pro, you know, might be for you. It might be worth a shot, because if you're really passionate about the game, then you're going to be willing to do whatever it takes to get good at it. And that's really what it all comes down to, is being willing to go the extra step, the extra mile to really do what it takes to succeed. Because all the guys who have made it in poker have worked very hard. At least the guys who are still around, they have worked very hard, and that's the only way to get success, is to put in hard work. And the final option, because right now I'm saying, well, you can either do it recreationally or you can do it professionally, is to go with the semi-pro option. I'm going to call it once. I was going to check fold the river if you bet again, but given that I can't want to go for value, if he was bluffing, I don't think he's going to keep bluffing, so I figure it's better to lead out, possibly get crying called, rather than just have to go check. But at this point, it looks like we're probably chopping, so that's fine. Yeah, I thought the ace was a likely possibility. The other reason I called the turn was also that he might be doing some sort of delayed c-bet bluff with a pocket pair. Sometimes people do that. They don't want to bet the flop because they're too over cards, and they're like, oh, well, he didn't bet the turn, so maybe he'll fold now. So they just bet with pocket pair. But I definitely wasn't going to call 2 bets there. So yeah, the third option is to just, you know, be a semi-pro. You don't commit to, you know, trying to make poker your career. Because if you already have a good paying job, it's hard to have poker compete with that out of the gate. It's the same as working your way up the corporate ladder. It would take a bunch of time before you start seeing some really, really big money coming in. So if you already have a job, that's a good option to do. And you don't need to be an amateur. You could still be a semi-pro, which means you do all the same things that a pro does in terms of taking it seriously, putting in the hard work, making good decisions in your life that are going to help you at the poker tables, only playing when you feel like you're at your best, knowing when to make good quits, things like that. The only difference between you being a semi-pro and a pro is that poker is not your only source of income, your only means of sustenance, which is also cool because it alleviates the pressure a lot once again. And also, if you're going with the whole semi-pro approach, you can get in a lot of hours just playing part-time. And if it's going really well, then you can make the transition. But at least you didn't put all your eggs in one basket at the get-go and put yourself in a spot where you're committed, and if it doesn't work out, then things are going to suck, per se. I'm going to fold this top pair because when we get raised on the flop, I don't think top pair bad kicker is going to be good, especially with a cold call behind. But I'm interested to see what these guys have. And I think that about covers it for professionalism and what makes someone a pro poker player. Huh. How about that? You know. And what separates a professional from an amateur? A professional would not put it in with 6-7 offsuit. And a professional is going to tilt a lot less, and it's just going to make better decisions overall because they value things more, they understand them more, they understand the importance and the impact. A professional is accountable to themselves and willing to acknowledge mistakes and then deal with mistakes, whereas an amateur will typically just blame mistakes on bad luck. And that's all. And not be willing to accept that, hey, maybe they didn't make the best decision. But if you're willing to think like a professional and act like a professional, even if you don't end up becoming a professional, you can still enjoy a lot of the results that a professional would have. You can still have a lot of great success and fun and profit from the game without having to commit 110%. It's all about just making sure that the time you put in towards the game is quality time rather than just, messing around time, screwing around, having fun and just clicking buttons. If you're putting in the extra effort to really improve, you will definitely see improvement. The hard work will pay off. You can call yourself a semi-pro. It's always a cool title to tell the chicks at the bar that, yeah, my main job is this, but I'm also a semi-pro poker player on the side. Play a lot of tournaments and stuff like that. And you can still share the lifestyle too. You can go away for a week to go play a poker tournament, go play in the WPT, the WSOP. Just because you're not a full-time pro doesn't mean you can't enjoy all the other benefits that go with being a professional poker player. So, yeah, if that's something you're interested in, don't be afraid to try it. Go for it. If you have any questions about it, write me, or if you want to take the leap, you guys want to let me know how things are going, keep me updated on your progress, feel free to send me emails, progress reports. Evan, I found this to be very helpful. Evan, I'm having difficulty with this. Can you point me in the right direction? That's what I'm here for, is to help you guys where you're having difficulty. And because maybe you'll bring up something that I haven't thought about before and will get me thinking about some changes I could make that's going to lead to my improvement. So it works both ways. That I help you guys where I can, and I get a lot of benefit from it too, and it betters my game, and it betters, me as a person to be doing what I can to offer my insight and help out my fellow players. So I'm going to end the video here. I feel like a lot of the live sessions have been going really long, and I think the topic has been covered pretty in depth. I don't want to drag it out, but if you guys would like to hear more on professionalism, I'm sure I can come up with some more ideas, or if there are other topics that you'd like me to discuss and you like this format, let me know. As always, my email is evan@grips.com. Love to hear your feedback, love to hear your comments. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now it's your turn. Go out there and get stacked.